Robosonic 505 here. Yeah, it's it's certainly been a while since I last uploaded here. It's been quite a bit, you know, lots of changes and stuff. But I'm not here to talk about my life story since my upload. I'm here to give you my first impressions on the 2020 World War One war film 1917. Holy crap! Uh, this this was a special kind of movie for me. Like, oh my god, Sam Mendes, the director Sam Mendes is. I haven't felt this way about a war movie, specifically a World War movie for like the World War One, World War Two era, since Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan, where I could kind of feel myself as I was as if I was there, on the battlefields of these horrible conflicts with thousands, hundreds of millions of human deaths. It's something I feel a lot of war movies don't do often. And while I did like Hacksaw Ridge, it felt a little the way it was shot. I think there's an important thing, at least to me, when it comes to a war movie, and it's the way it's shot, the cinematography. And this is something that 1917 does. There's something unique with it. The whole movie is done in at least three takes, just constantly rolling, almost zero cuts. And this is what really shocked me about it because we were literally following the main characters as they went through the battlefields of World War One. The story of 1917 is two British soldiers are told by their general that they are ordered to deliver a message to another British battalion further up the front lines to halt an attack that is leading them right into a German this other battalion into a German trap. And if they don't get there in time, it'll be around the casualty rate will be around 1,600. And of course, for extra motivation, one of the soldiers up in this second battalion is one of our main characters' brothers. So of course he's extra motivated, to want to get this mission done, save his brother from being massacred by the German army if we're running into the German trap and all these hundreds of other men. And it's all in one. Like I said, it's all in one shot. It starts with the two soldiers, uh, sleeping on a tree. They're played by uh, Dean Charles Chapman and and George McKay as Lance Corp. I'm sorry. It's just this movie has this movie's really hit me hard because I haven't felt this way about a movie in ages, where it really makes me think about just what these men had to go through to give us the freedoms of today. I wouldn't be here, talking about this movie if it wasn't for for the men who fought in these battles. And uh, yes, I know 1917 was almost the end of World War One. Whew. Yeah, it's as I said, for me the most important thing about a war movie is the way it's shot. Steven Spielberg, well, there was definitely a lot more cuts, and there was a tiny hint of Hollywoodization having Tom Hanks and Matt Damon in it, two well-known actors, especially in our day, you know. But like, if you remember from the Omaha beach landing, there were certain shots that were it was shot in a way, with a lot of. It was kind of like found footage, but not so shaky. What Spielberg was trying to get is really getting you into the battle. No Hollywood, epic Hollywood slow motion, or those epic shots of like firing, a still image of a gun firing or something. And that's something. And while it was a lot more cut, I think it was much better done in 1917 because, as I said, it's all one take, and almost the whole time you're behind these two soldiers trying to push through no man's land, with anything can happen at any moment, and you're just going behind them. And you're seeing all the horrors of war. There's a bunch of bodies everywhere, not just like just the fallen, but like these soldiers have to. They have holes in their chests. There's a bunch of. It wasn't the most gory movie I've ever seen, but I completely agree. And this movie is a reminder of. I think you should definitely watch this movie to remind you of what the veterans of any war, really, the people of the past, these men and the women who also served, not on the front lines, but like everyone who participated in these horrible conflicts, the fighting and the sacrifices they had to make just to give us what we have now. Yeah, this movie is definitely not kind to its protagonists. You know, they're beaten down as they come across all these German traps, all the horrors of war. There's one scene that I really like when they just left their trench. They're trying to make the first crossing because the Germans have purposely retreated. To strategically plan out this trap for the Second British Battalion. These two soldiers are slowly coming in. They're slowly approaching the German trench that used to have the soldiers in it. And the music, the way the music is done in this movie, the music, it builds up as they're coming across. They're slowly closing in on the Germans trench, and then they finally get there. They aim their rifles thinking there might be Germans, and it's completely empty. So they start exploring, trying to see, in case if they're falling into their own trap. And the music perfectly lines up with all the tension that these two soldiers are feeling, because there's one at one point, they come across this bucket full of burned coal that's still smoking, meaning that the Germans, they had left the trench, but it wasn't that long ago. And they, still searching, trying to find a way behind the trench so they can keep moving to get to this to the other battalion. And they enter the German bunker. See all the barracks, the empty barracks. There's a bunch of rats everywhere. They're talking about how much more advanced the German army was compared to them. Like, even making a small joke that even the rats in their trenches were bigger than theirs. And they come across a tripwire, and they see it. So you think that the scene will just be of the two soldiers, carefully trying to step over the tripwire, but then a rat trips it, and it blows up the bunker, and one of the soldiers is buried under a bunch of bricks that had fallen down. The other guy, tries to dig him out, and he's still alive, but he's all covered in dust. He's all covered in dust, and they're trying to get out of this trench because the explosion is crumbling, taking the trench down. Fuck. Yeah, so they get out of the trench. On there on the other side, you see all these abandoned German artillery guns with thousands of shells fired. Because if you know how the battles of World War I went, it's I think it was like well over like 6 million shells fired in one barrage of artillery, because they would always use artillery to soften the enemy up before attempting to charge them. And eventually, they come across this farm. They think there might be Germans in it. They're scouting around with their rifles up held high, and they see these two British aircraft, engaged in a dogfight with a German plane. They start watching it, and the British pilots shoot down this German aircraft that actually ends up crashing in the barn that the two soldiers were at, and they try to save the German pilot and I mean, why? I mean, he's an enemy, but it still kind of shows that they have that humanity to them, that wouldn't let this, even though he's a German, try to let this man burn alive in his airplane. But it ends up costing him gravely, because one of the soldiers tries to get him water. The German pilot shanks the brother of the guy who they're trying to get to at the second battalion. And this is the death scene of the soldier. It's after he's shanked and the other guy shoots the German pilot, the way he screams, he's scared, because, and the thing is, I wasn't sure if he was scared about dying or scared about the fact that they might not make it in time to the other place, and 1,600 more men would be massacred by the German trap. So the other guy, who he holds this dying soldier in his hand, promising him that he will find his brother, he will make it to this other trench. He will find the colonel of this battalion, and he will stop the attack to save the lives of these men. And the tragic thing is that right after this young man dies in the other soldier's arms from a shank wound, it turns out that there was a convoy of British troops that just arrived almost the second after he died. And yeah, so the soldier takes goes with the British convoy after grieving a bit over the loss of his friend, and the fact that now he would all have to, if he completed the mission, he would have to tell his brother, his friend's brother, that his brother was dead. But he still keeps going. He made a promise that he would complete this mission and save these men from running into their deaths. So he boards this convoy, and they run into some obstacles. The truck gets stuck in mud, but because he's just so determined to avenge his friend and make sure that his death isn't in vain, he leads these other soldiers in this convoy to push the truck out of the mud. And they run a couple more obstacles. There's fallen trees, and then they reach a town that he has to cross in order to get to this other battalion. But the bridge is out, so the convoy has to divert. But he chooses to get off there and then and go on his own. And I I can't imagine the. I don't think anyone could imagine what that must feel like. You know, being alone in this horrible 4 year war, just alone. All you have is your rifle and the bullets in your rifle, in your aim, and walking into this town, and almost immediately he starts getting shot at as he's trying to cross this broken bridge, trying to cross the river, and there's a German sniper that's trying to kill him, and it. I mean, the it is a little Hollywoodized, you know. It's kind of the bad guys don't have that good aim because he doesn't get shot once, but this was probably the only proper like gunfight between two soldiers in this movie. What's funny is what I found interesting is that for a World War I movie, there was like barely any shooting. I normally nor even even in like yeah, I mean yeah, I know World War I wasn't as like bullet filled and as fast as World War II in modern days are. Since everyone has a fully automatic machine gun, you get a machine gun, and you get a machine gun. And, back then they only had bolt action rifles and a few mounted machine guns. Few officers had submachine guns, but like I said, this is the only like proper gunfight. And what's interesting is that you don't even get a good look at this German soldier again because the whole thing is shot with one take. So you're still seeing the camera from the perspective of the British soldier. So you can only you basically can only see what he sees. And there's at one point where he fires a shot back, and the German, he retreats into the window, but we're not sure if he's hit or not. So the British soldier he goes into the house that the German sniper was shooting at from to make sure that he's dead, because if he goes on and that sniper's still alive and he shoots him, then that'll cost those 1,600 men their lives. Yeah, so he climbs up the stairs. The music's blasting with tense music. See, we wait to see what'll happen to this guy. He comes up to the room where the sniper was at, and he did hit him, but he didn't kill him, and he's aiming right back, hoping the German soldier is aiming at the door. And when the British soldier opens it, they both fire. He kills the German, but he also gets hit in the shoulder and falls down the stairs. And this is where the first cut of the movie happens. It cuts to black because he gets knocked out, and when we return, it's night, meaning he's lost a lot of time, because the caption for this movie is that time is the enemy. It's something that's similar to like something I really like, similar to The Walking Dead, where the zombies in The Walking Dead aren't actually the big threat of that universe. It's actually, other humans. And this kind of does something similar where, the Germans aren't even the big threat. It's the time. Time is the enemy in this movie because he doesn't have a lot of it. He has to get across this cross no man's land where anything could happen to him at any moment, and he might not even make it. But if he doesn't, all right, I'll see you later then. That Star Wars guy. Yeah, yeah. He wakes up again, and then yeah, there's a bunch of flares going off in this town that he's at because the German army is advancing through this. There's a few German soldiers in this town, so of course he starts running like mad. A few Germans see him, they start shooting him, And then he comes across this burning church, and there's a figure, standing, next to it, and he's silhouetted in a way where we can't actually tell what if he's a British soldier or a German soldier. But and of course, he ends up being a German. But the British soldier isn't sure of it until he starts walking closer, and then the German tries to shoot him. So of course he runs and runs, and then he enters these. He hides in this underground house and finds a mom, a woman, a French woman. You know, calms her down, makes sure he's not an enemy, and then so she's French but understands a bit of English and vice versa with him, and he fuck this movie. No, I'm not literally. I mean, I love this movie, but like, Christ, it made it. Like I said, I haven't felt this way about a war movie since Saving Private Ryan. Where it really shows the lengths and that these brave men will go to whether it's following orders or to save lives. Really shows what they had to go through to give us the freedom we have today. I these men, every single veteran, living or that sacrificed himself in the war for us, they have my utmost respect. I cannot, I could never imagine what they went through to for us. They willingly, well, I mean, not all of them, but lots of them, and they're young men. Some are like as old as I am right now, 18. They went to war and saw these horrible things, seeing their friends being gunned down in front of their eyes, and then they still fought on, and gave us the freedom we have. And it's the stories of war. War is it's a horrible thing. It's brings a lot of chaos and destruction to our planet, but without it, without war, like war is what shaped us. The two world wars are what ended up shaping us into what we are. The lessons we learned from those wars to prevent them from ever happening again have helped make a have helped to make the society we live in now. And it's I can't imagine what it was like being alive at the time of these two wars. You know, having your dad or your husband or your brother go off on this boat, and you know the chance that he might never come back. And, anyway, after this, he he keeps on going. There's more German soldiers see him, and it really tear him down. He loses his gun. He eventually, you know, starts dropping his equipment because he jumps into this river to get away from these Germans so they don't end up killing him, and you know, indirectly killing these other 1,600 men. He's battered and broken. Eventually, he's just down to his uniform, no gun, no equipment. He finally gets out of this river after crawling on a pile of bodies that were stuck on this log, all white, dead, frozen. One's missing an eye, one has their throat slit. Yeah, he after he gets out from this river, he hears what at first I thought was the sound of a trumpet, you know, and which signified that the attack was about to happen, and that It might have been too late. He keeps going and finds that it wasn't actually the sound of a trumpet. It was actually a British soldier who was singing for these other bunch of other soldiers, singing around him, for morale. And then it's the battalion he was looking for, but it's the second wave of soldiers, and they tell him that the first wave of the attack is about to go because this attack is happening right at dawn. So he starts running like mad, pushing through all these soldiers, trying to get to the front, find this colonel. The music, blasting. Goes, and the attack starts. The soldiers start going over the trench line, and they start running, and there's a bunch of German artillery is, coming down, and eventually he himself goes over the trench and to keep on running to try to find the commanding officer. And it's pure, sometimes it's pure luck whether someone survives, because at any moment, if he had been hit by one of those artillery shells, that would have been it. But eventually he makes it, desperately tries to tell this colonel that the army general told him to hold off the attack. And at first the colonel doesn't listen because he's already sent these men out, and he thinks that he's driving the Germans back. He has no idea that this is a trap. Yeah. The soldier gives him the letter from the general, and the colonel hesitantly actually has to calls off the attack. Because telling him that the war will be won by the last man standing. And now the soldier has to, and it's not wasn't even honestly, it wasn't even the hardest part for this guy, because now he has to go find his dead friend's brother and tell him what happened to his family member. He's looking around for his lieutenant, finds him, and then he tells him that his brother was dead. But the interesting thing is he sort of lies to him. He tells him that it was a quick death, but at the same time, I think it would have been worse if he told him that his brother had suffered before he died. At least he'll. But in the end, at least, he realized that his sacrifice was not in vain, because this one soldier traveled through no man's land. Went through literally hell to deliver this message and stop this attack from happening. Preventing this British battalion from walking into a German trap. And after that, he finds a tree to sit on and just sits down, takes pictures of his own family, waiting for him back in England, for him to come home. 1917 it was an incredible movie. I'll give it a 10 out of 10. The cinematography, three takes to shoot the whole thing. I can't imagine what it would have been like, filming that thing, because you'd have to memorize a giant portion of the script, and be constantly moving. There's no cuts, so you can't take breaks. If you messed up one thing, you would have had to start from the beginning. So I commend these actors and the extras for and especially the director for filming this scene. But most of all, I give out my heart and all my respects to the brave men and women who served for our country, and all the countries who fought in the war. My heart goes out to them, because without them, like I said, I might not be here talking about this movie that's dedicated to make sure that their memories and their stories are never forgotten. Because if we forget the lessons we learned and the sacrifices that these people made, and well, we might repeat the same mistakes that led to these horrible conflicts, and their sacrifices would end up being in vain. But yeah, my heart goes out to the veterans. If, I don't know if any of you who are still alive will watch this, but thank you for your service. You fought, saw many horrible things, but thank you for serving our country, for making the sacrifice to make sure that we have the freedoms we have today. 1917, I'll give a 10 out of 10. Yeah. All right. Now, that was my first fresh, raw impressions of 2020's 1917, directed by Sam. Directed by. Directed by. Directed by San Mendes. Yeah, I this movie definitely deserved to topple Rise of Skywalker from the box office. 10 out of 10. Well, that'll be it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you. For I'll see you later. Have a good night.